addicted to doing tech talks now. um, so I set up Tailwind in our project. Just wanted to go over a few things. First of all, definitely install this VS Code plugin. It's super useful, and you'll see as I show different stuff. Um, but I wanted to go over a few things. First of all, what Tailwind is. So utility first fundamentals. What that means is like it has a bunch of different classes, and you should use those classes, and they're referred to as utility classes because they're like stuff like set flex, set display flex, set justify, content to center, like stuff like that. They just do like small little things. So you set a bunch of classes, and then that's your CSS. You don't set up custom CSS. You avoid doing custom CSS. So this is an example of like what you like the old way, right? Like you set up a class, so not styled components or MUI, well, kind of like MUI, but like not styled components, just HTML. You set up a class, and then you set up a bunch of CSS, and yeah, and this is the Tailwind way. So you're sacrificing long class names that are kind of hard to understand when you first start, but you quickly learn this. It's really not that complicated. But you don't have anything else. This is it. This is your entire thing. There's no other CSS. So you avoid this, right? Because the idea is, why do we even put these in different files? We put them in different files because they're ugly. And I have the same issue, I think, with styled components. Like I have one that's really gnarly here. This about main. I have a bunch of styled components defined here. So many styled components. So many. And then yes, this looks nice. Like this is nice. It's just my setup with all the different styled components, right? But it's hiding the CSS up here. It's not really hiding it, but still. It's a lot of CSS, right? So instead of that, you just have all these different classes. And yes, you'll have long strings and a lot of these stuffs, but you can kind of, but it's like inline CSS as well, because it's like with your HTML essentially. So like I said, it's a bunch of utility classes. So like this is like padding, like a certain amount of padding. This is max width small. This is margin in the x-axis, auto, background white, but that sort of thing, right? And there's other things too. These things are really cool. So you can add modifiers to your utility classes like hover. So this normally is Sky 500 is a color. So this is a specific color. So here you're saying the background is this, but this is just saying, okay, on hover, I want this class. So you just set it in the class, So everything is like that. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And you can stack multiple ones too. Like dark is for dark mode. MD is a responsive design, so that's middle thing. And again, this is the background color. So yeah, you have all these different options. There is kind of this issue that they sort of address here about reusing styles, because like here, you have a bunch of images, you want them all styled the same, so you have to repeat this big string over and over again. Their first solution here is laughable to me. I think it's a bad solution. It's like, just don't worry about it and just use multi-cursor editing to add the same string. Which I think is really funny that that's their first solution. Because they're essentially saying it doesn't matter because they're all together, right? There's also loops, so again, this is not always going to be the case, but sometimes, a lot of times, honestly, when you have repeat stuff like that, you can just put it in a loop, and then you only have to do it once. Sometimes that's the case. But you can also force that sometimes by just creating a custom array that you can loop through and use a map, so you only set the class name once. That's also an option. And then there's also, taking it out into its own component, which again, that's more like component level stuff. Obviously, that's not going to apply for just like a single thing with a class. You don't really want to do that, but you guys can read through the rest of this, but there are ways to customize. And my favorite way is to use the theme, which I'll talk about when we get to the code. But there's other ways too. You can set arbitrary values. So this is really cool. You can use this bracket syntax in order to say, instead of like top MD or top LG, you just set the exact pixels you want. You can do a lot of stuff like that. You can set specific colors. But again, these things, unless it really is a one-off, I like to set these things in the theme instead, and you guys will see that soon enough. There's also this, which is totally arbitrary property. So this is just making a class where this is a type. I have no idea what mass type is, but like imagine this is a display flex. You could set up a class that's just, you just setting up the CSS right there. This is the CSS I want for this class. So it's totally arbitrary in this case. They should have like more common examples of CSS for this, I think. Oh, and same thing for like stuff like this. Like, oh, I only want to apply this for the nth child. So this is a modifier, right? Like LG and hover, nth child is a modifier, but you're saying like which one. So like, so you can also do that with that, and you just use the ampersand thing, just like you would in CSS or SAS. Yeah, well, you guys can read through the rest of this. There's other stuff here. Oh, actually, I did want to go over a little bit over here just so you're aware. You can do this layer stuff, layer apply thing. Where is it? I don't see where the apply is. Yeah, here, like this, where you can say, you can create this like layer thing. I don't know too much about this, but you can say layer base component or utility, and then like set this. I think the base is you would do for like global styles, and then you apply the certain things. So that's one way to resolve that like repetitiveness problem, right? But this isn't a global, because it's like, you really don't want to do it. There's not like specific CSSs. You're just going to have one CSS file with all your stuff in there, because you're really just going to be defining stuff in theme and stuff like that. I don't think I'm explaining this well, but you guys can read through this. So let me just go into like some stuff, because I have been messing around with this. So in my site, so I started using Tailwind with this. So this I built with Tailwind, and I started with just like a form example I found. So a lot of the stuff was already done, but then I customized a lot of it. And this up here is, I did it myself. So this is not, this is just regular styled component stuff. But you can see I did something similar here, but I did have to customize a lot of stuff. So anyway, so pretty much this is the code. So you see it's all HTML, instead of having styled components, right? Like the blue ones that show up. And this is it. All of it is in here. So like, I don't have any other CSS. This is the entire file, and this is doing all of that, right? So again, get the extension, because you can do this. You can just hover and see the exact CSS that this class is doing. So again, with full, display flex, justify center. So why does this say important? I immediately ran into this issue where I had a third-party library that was applying CSS that was more specific. And I was like, how do you fix specificity issues in Tailwind? Because everything's just a class. There's not any more specificity than that. And it turns out you can't. But the argument is, but you can turn on this important thing, which I did in the config. And the argument is that essentially it doesn't matter for Tailwind, because in Tailwind, the whole point is like, if you put a class name with full here, you want it to be with full. It should be the final source of truth. There shouldn't be anything overriding it, because you're not like, nesting styles and stuff like that. You're not doing stuff like that. You're just putting the class name where it goes. Obviously, you will have to nest styles if you're trying to style a third-party thing, but I think that's where the layer apply stuff comes in handy, actually, because you can do classes there, just FYI. But yeah, so anyway, I'm trying it. I have, my whole life I haven't liked using important, but I'm trying it out with Tailwind, because yeah, I believe in it, I guess. But yeah, so anyway, you have all these different things, background color, max width, and it tells you here like exactly what MD is. It's 448 pixels in this case. And before, margin bottom 416 pixels, and it's in rems, is how it's using it. I did do this, so this was my kind of solution to not repeating classes, is I just put in a variable, because it's just a class name, so it's just a string. I did notice though that you can't hover over it once it's out of the JSX or TSX or whatever. So just FYI on that. But yeah, here's my gnarly class for my button. So as you can see, you'll definitely have long strings of classes when you style something. And I did overly style this button. This button is very styled, so that's why. But I'll show you guys the theme, because that's what I found. That's what all I've used to customize so far. So I've been able to replicate the styles that I did, you know, and to add some extra stuff just with the theme. I didn't have to do anything else yet. So pretty much it's just this. This is the Tailwind config.js. Here's where the important thing is. And there's a theme thing here. And you can extend the theme and do whatever you want in there. So this is cool because this is a color, this is white. And what that does is that means that whenever something references the color white, it's now this color instead. And I can do this because I'm importing it here. I have to use require because this is not a module. But yeah, and I just did that because I didn't want my white to be pure white. So it's cool because now when I do background white, and you can see it specifies it here. I don't like that this doesn't use hex, by the way, but whatever. This is not white anymore. This is not FFF, right? This is just, you know, the custom thing. So any color I do, if I do text white, same thing, because I've redefined what white is for this. That's pretty much what I've done by modifying the theme. So you can do that for anything. You can make white blue if you want, and every time you specify, you know, text white, it'll be blue now because you're just changing it. And you can make your custom stuff. So I didn't like this. I didn't like the different sign. Oh, let me show the color thing too, because the swatches are really cool for the extension. So if I just do BG, and also the extension, like as you type, it'll give you like all these different options. So that's cool. These are all the built-in colors. There's a lot of choices. So that's the point. It's like, if you don't need to deviate, you don't need to deviate. But if you want to add new colors, you can, which is what I've done. So I didn't feel like any of the science fit into what I was using before. So I just defined my own color. But this pink right here and this pink right here are not the same. I actually am just using pink 500 for this, whereas this was a different color. Just FYI, because I thought it was close enough. But yeah, anyway, the swatches are really cool. But as you can see now, because I added it to the color, just my own custom color, it's now here, cyan L. And same thing with like text. It's just there. It's just another color because I added it to the theme. So that's all I had to do for that. All I had to do was just say colors, cyan L is this. And you can also just do, you can also do stuff like this. 100 is this, and then do 200, 300, 400, 500, and make your different things. You can also, you know, because there is the different, oops, wrong file. There is the different, you know, cyan, you know, the different ones. You can add a 350 or a 325, you know, you can do that too. You can do that sort of stuff too. And you can just add it because this is just extending stuff. So if you just, you know, say cyan 350, you can add one like that. But yeah, and then same thing here, border width 3 pixels. So like, where did I use that? Probably up here somewhere. Oh, maybe I didn't use that. Maybe I can remove that. Anyway, yeah, so you know, if I just say border, yeah, border spacing, because I set border width to 3, I now have this option. Before this wasn't an option. There was just border spacing 2 and border spacing 4. It is a little bit to figure out like what the things are called, but the thing is that when I type stuff here, it helps. It tells you like these are the different things you can set. So like you have border radius here, right? You see here I have rounded, so it'll affect that. You know what I mean? So it's pretty intuitive. Sometimes you may get into a situation where you don't know how to do it. But anyway, I set a border with 3 So now I have a border spacing that is 3 pixels. But I could also, just like I was showing before, instead of doing that, let's see, border spacing, I could also just do this. I think, yeah, you can see it right there. You can see the CSS even with the custom stuff. It's set it to 3 pixels. So you can also do the arbitrary values here. So that's another option I could have done instead of just making a new thing. I thought, whatever. If I'm using it once, I might use it again. There's no really harm. I already have 2 and 4. Might as well have a 3, so that's why I did that. But anyway, yeah. So that's another thing with the theme. Box shadow. So this was highly customized. There's not a lot of options for shadows, and I already had this inset shadows. There's really just one option for inset. It's called box shadow inner. So I added this, and I just did this just to follow the syntax, so of what they use. So this is box shadow inner L, top left cyan L, which is because it's my custom cyan. Bottom right pink 500, but this is just the name. You can make it whatever you want, and it's just setting this whole thing. And then I made one that's backwards. And then if you look at, so I did that. So here's my class name. So the background is, why is the background this? This is for the button. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. No, this is the background I wanted. So I set this background. I set this long ass class name, right? So that's taking care of my box shadowing. You can see the box shadow there. And then I say on hover, set it to the other version that I set up. Set my text color. And then here, there's already this transition shadow. So this is what's taking care of the transition. I can set the timing function because you can see this transition shadow is setting this timing function. I set a new timing function. I don't know why it always uses cubic Bezier. Ease in and out is an existing thing. I don't know why it does that. I don't really care. But it looks fine. And then the duration, because the duration by default is 150, so I can just set it. And that's it, right? Yeah. And that's like all the styles I needed for this, and I was able to do all this, and it's all just classes. I don't have any CSS here. I have my theme, but I mean, I added it to the theme, to be clear. I added it to the theme because I thought I might reuse this. I might reuse this box shadow. That's really the only reason. But yeah, I mean, there's also the option of doing the arbitrary thing. So let's see here, let me copy this. So I could also just take this, and I'll have to figure out the color. And I just use the interpolated string here to add the colors pink 500. I couldn't specify color cyan L because it hasn't been loaded into colors yet. So, I mean, I think I'll probably just end up putting this in a variable up here, and just, use it in both places. But anyway, what I was trying to show is could also use so instead of doing this, could also use the arbitrary styles. So I could just say box shadow this, and then I guess I don't know what pink 500 is. I should set it to black for now, or just pink for now. Wait, can I still do this in here? Let's test it out. Maybe I can still do that. Okay, the hovering doesn't seem to be working with this. Is it because I need to make this a string? Let's see if it works first of all. No, it's not working. Okay, bad test. You can do the theme thing. You can also, like I said, with the layers thing, I could just make a custom class where I just add the box shadow. But I think that is more for if you're adding multiple styles, right? Because you can always just add a style to your theme and call it whatever, right? Because in your theme, that's essentially what you're doing. When you do this, I'm just saying like, okay, this is like a specific style I want. Because it's under box shadow, it knows that it's a shadow style. So I don't have to say box shadow : blah, blah, blah. But yeah. I think that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else that I know of so far. But this is what it is. It's definitely opinionated. I'm just kind of trying it out. I like it so far. But there's definitely things that are, we might not like ultimately about it. So, yeah, that's all.